chicken noises?
Oh yeah! That's right. We got a chicken in the studio. Chicken. We're trying to keep all the chickens in the coops now, but we can't keep them under control. They're starting to take over.
There's a monkey
I think one of them has a gun.
Yeah, you gotta get out of here.
Oh boy, we better go. They're starting to take over. We gotta get out of here. Daily Solutions Podcast.
Watch out for those chickens, yeah.
Where's that man monkey come from?
Okay, all right, great. Perfect. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah,
Welcome to the Daily Solutions Podcast.
Yep, I'm Graham.
I'm Ashkahn, and we got a special
we have a whole panel of
episode.
people
yeah,
here.
This is going to be a fun one. We got a fun one for you guys.
Yeah.
So we're in St. Louis right now.
Yep.
Boom, surprise.
Yeah.
Gotcha, guys. You thought you were in Portland, but we're in St. Louis.
Home of the largest chicken ranch in the United States.
Yeah, very smart chicken. They can wield tools. It's kind of frightening.
I don't know if you knew that. It's on the Wikipedia page. If
We're
it's
about
not,
to
you should
add
go
it
out. You
to
should
the
go add that
Wikipedia.
right now. If it's not, yeah.
So why are we in St. Louis, Graham?
Well, I thought I just explained that with the chicken farm thing. Like, this is very concrete. So we are here for Rise Float Gathering, which is an awesome float event. It's more like we were just saying, kind of like a family reunion of the float world. So just kicking it here in Robes. Like they made the big mistake of inviting us out, and we're just kind of taking over.
And Rise is put on by Float St. Louis. We got a few of the Rise gentlemen
I'd
here
say a couple.
with
A few,
us.
I think, is 3 or more technically.
We have one less than a few of the Float St. Louis gentlemen with
Thank
us
you.
here right now.
A couple.
Mr. Jake and Mr. Kevin.
Embarrassingly, I showed up with pants instead of a robe. Sorry about
It's
that.
okay. It happens every time. Everybody's second conference. Yeah.
Welcome guys.
Yep.
And we have a special guest on today's episode.
He was the audience last
He was
week.
the audience. He's moved up in the world. Like he's been
Yesterday.
promoted. He's been promoted. Yeah, yesterday he was the audience member.
daily, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
we get it confused too sometimes. Yeah.
I
Like,
watched
see you
these
next
guys.
month.
I watched these guys drink for about 20 minutes. I'm like, I can sneak in right now, and I just stole a mic, and here I am.
Here he is.
I won't
So
say who I
introduce
am.
yourself. You're okay. Mystery guest. We have a mystery guest.
I'm the fan from that last. Okay, you guys said my name the last episode. So my name is Greg. Hi.
And you
Thanks
run.
for having me on
Yeah,
your
what-
table.
what's
I
your
feel
center?
honored. Float Madison,
Excellent.
Wisconsin.
All right, and what is your question?
Yeah. What's your question, Greg?
So I have a question. I was going to say it's non-float related, but I guess it is. So I used to have all sorts of awesome hobbies, and then I started a float center.
yeah.
Floating was an obsession, so it became a hobby and became an obsession, and that's what I love doing. But I stopped skateboarding. I guess that was probably my only hobby outside of floating and other things. But so I guess skateboarding I miss. What are your guys' hobbies right now? And is there anything that you stopped doing to start your float centers that you eventually started doing again, or you wish you were doing still? And how do you make time for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing I stopped doing was going to my 9-to-5 job.
Smart.
That's,
I don't know if you count that
yeah,
as
as
a
a hobby,
hobby,
is
but-
maybe generous there, but
Just my pastime is working a 9 to 5. You know? What I do in my free time.
Let me be clear, hobbies.
That's
Yeah.
a good question.
yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean,
perhaps a depressing answer.
I spend most of my time trying to get Ashkahn to stop doing projects with me. It just hasn't worked out so far yet.
And I just spend most of the time convincing Graham to stay with it. We got something going here.
Yeah, so our hobbies have really fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
I mean, we met in theater school, making theater
Yeah.
and doing theater things.
That was our lives.
I can't remember the last time I did anything theater related.
And so that's
Maybe?
Robes,
No.
is kinda-
Dressing up
yeah.
in robes for a conference.
analog slides.
This seems pretty much the same.
Well, this is the point, though. Like everything, like any hobbies that we have had to figure out a way to be wedged into
Yeah.
the existing
That's
kind of
basically
float
it.
infrastructure,
we
right?
have to, we can't do hobbies unless we find some sort of clever ruse to integrate floating into it.
It's like, oh, do we get to put on a Hamlet play, or like a Shakespeare play, Hamlet play? It's like, well, yeah, if we
There's a
make
play it in the Hamlet, so you can.
That's
you can
true,
Be
yeah,
putting on those,
okay,
you know,
no, it still makes
just
sense.
various versions of
Anyway,
the
no, it's
play
like, but
in
we can make Hamlet references in our float talks. It's like the closest we get to being able to put on Hamlet, right?
But we can do more serious things. I like to travel. Traveling is really fun.
Yep.
And we just forced it to make business sense for us to go on a 3-month road trip around the United States and Canada. And like, was that what was going to add the most profit to the bottom line of our business? Definitely not. And never did we think that was the case. But it seemed really fun. Like we love traveling, we love visiting places, and we obviously just couldn't casually take a 3-month road trip and stop working and stop running our business. So we found a way to merge the two together. Yeah, go on a float tour.
So me turning my basement at my float center into a skate park is probably the way it's a great idea.
That's just like every time you empty your float tanks to refill them, just do a couple like ollies in there, skate up and down the float tub.
It's great, just really, I mean, it's like there's a huge incentive to not crash and burn at that point, right? Because like you're going to be refilling all the float tanks with all the salt water. Like if you have some elbow rash from,
salt stings.
Yeah, salt stings a lot. So,
but it's true. It's difficult. I mean, and I think it's difficult for any small business.
Yeah.
You open a small
this isn't
business,
just flow related.
it's all consuming. Like you're doing everything you can. I mean, usually what happens is you don't have a lot of money, but what you do have is every waking hour of your day. Like that's what you do in exchange for money. Is you spend every waking hour of your day hustling because you can't pay people to like do the things for you.
There's an old joke that goes, the nice thing about being a small business owner is you get to work whatever 18 hours a day you want to.
Yeah.
Right, and that's like, it's very true. Like there's a certain amount of freedom in that, but mainly, you work a whole lot.
And it does get better. I mean, like I'll use myself as an example in travel. I really love to travel, and that's hard to do when you run a brick and mortar business. And it was a lot of encouragement for me to get our business to the point that it really was running with managers and I didn't have to be there on a daily basis. And we have other kind of things that we do, like making software and stuff that I can do remotely. And like there was a lot of motivation for me to move our business and our work to a place where I could work remotely so that all of a sudden I could travel again. And I can now I can travel and just work on my computer. And like my hobby is what like pushed the company in that direction to try to get. I mean, we all love that. It's like, so it was like a mutual desire for us to all go that direction.
And I guess those who like to travel and I open a float center so I can't travel will attend the float conference, attend the float gathering. Right?
Yeah.
I got to come to St. Louis this weekend. I closed my float center for the weekend.
Nice,
I'll have staff next year so I can stay open. But hey, I get to hang out in St. Louis for the weekend, which I didn't think was going to happen when I opened the float center, but now there's different conferences going on, so we get to travel to these new spots, so it can still happen in some sort of capacity.
Right.
And that said, like I think some form of incorporating your hobby back into your life is eventually necessary. Like during construction and stuff like that, when you're building out and when you're getting started, like there is a point where it really does feel like your float center requires almost every waking hour that you have to give it, and that's a lot of how people get burnt out on things. So if you're going for, now it's the year after you've been open, now it's 2 years and 3 years, and you still haven't picked up a skateboard or a guitar, like I would encourage you to maybe try to budget that time into your week, and actually try to pick it up for even if it's just like an hour or two, Like I think of Mark from Float in Nashville. He said after one of his early floats and kind of what made him want to open up Float in Nashville was he went and floated, and he has a music studio just on permanent, rim down in Nashville. And he was just walking by it. He found himself walking over there after his float. And for some reason, he's just like, I should go into my music studio. And just spent like the entire night, like the next 6 hours or something, just recording music, and hadn't been in there in over a year. And there's something about floating, I think, that actually lets you tap into that creative side. And it's a loss if you don't take advantage of that. If you're just too busy running your business, you don't get to enjoy the things that you used to,
So it's like you need to float at your float center, of course. And like I've definitely had floats where during the float I go, holy I haven't skateboarded in 3 months. Tonight, after this float, I'm going to go skateboard, even if it's for 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
People are floating. I'll sneak out back and I'll skateboard for a few minutes, do some flip tricks. It'll be awesome.
It's true. I've had a lot of time. Like the float tank, being in the float tank is the main time I think about how much I'm not doing my hobbies. Like I've had a lot of floats where I'm like, why don't I drum anymore? Like what is going? I gotta get on that. So that's true. Just float and that'll motivate you. Okay, what about you guys, Kevin, Jake? What was your life like before float tanks, and do you still do any of those things?
A lot of my hobbies were hanging out with people and not saying much. So this is working out great. I actually cannot relate to you guys very much, so this feels good. Yay.
Alright, so no problem over there.
I mean,
Kevin, what do you
I mean,
got?
some of my biggest.
Wait, I'm just kidding,
No,
guys.
that's it. You had your turn. You tried it. No, really, go ahead, Jake. Tell us.
Well, I mean, one of my hobbies, I like to woodwork.
Oh yeah?
With
That's pretty cool.
like with
That's not, I'm being serious, like that sounds cool.
He has a serious face on the audience. He's dead serious right now.
carve things, make things. The big thing was with tools, right? So being a business owner, you start to not have much money anymore to be able to. A lot of hobbies are expensive.
That's why people open businesses.
Yeah.
To get rid of money.
But in very similar ways, like what's one of the roles that I took in the float center is working with my hands mechanically,
Right.
fixing a lot of the things, always being there to do that sort of like hands-on, which has been really enjoyable. So it's synonymous in that way, but also traveling, huge traveler. But that's something that Kevin and I have always worked out because of our partnership, is being able to like figure out ways where we can cover for each other to be able to go and travel and do the world scenery type of thing.
I think I came to visit. We were in Float St. Louis on our
that's
right.
right.
road trip,
We
and
missed you
none of
guys.
you were here.
Yeah, we missed you.
I showed up and literally like all the owners are gone.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Kevin's in Peru, and like I'm like, oh okay.
I think I was nursing at that time, so I was probably sleeping.
That's kind of like right when we opened, we're like, hey, we got to get really good at training our employees because we're not going to be around, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, I love, there's something that's like really luxurious. It's so simple, but it's so luxurious about just sitting down and reading a book, like undisturbed. That's all I'm doing. It's just me and the book. And, in a similar way, that's had to shift a little bit, right? So just the content of what I'm reading now.
Now it's you and like your staff and the book.
And the book's actually on the shelf, and sometimes I look
Reading
at
a
it.
float tank manual.
Like while I'm washing the
Red
towels,
light means.
a little tear goes down the side of my cheek, and I think about what reading used to be like. But what I have done, to your point, Greg, is that I've just scheduled those reading times, and I've had to be a little bit more intentional about it, and also intentional about which types of content that I'm reading, because it's easy to get into just wanting to consume a lot of literature on topic around business and around
Right.
floating, and
Definitely.
there's a lot of other
sure.
nice fiction books out there, and
Sometimes those contain floating, you know?
sometimes they do, yeah. And Jake actually recommended fiction. We actually had this conversation. I'm like, Jake, why would I read that fiction book right now that has nothing to do with what we're working on, you know?
There's enough in the real world.
Why are you trying to tease me with those? So, it's easy to get away from those things that just are simple and pleasurable and maybe nonsensical, right?
Well, the nice thing is that I really feel like when you go through the process of opening a small business and a float center especially, it totally makes you evaluate how important your time is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like before being this
Every
busy,
minute.
like I was very like loose and lackadaisical with what I was doing with my free time. And now I'm very like conscientious of it,
Okay, what's that? Buy 10 watermelons and get a katana and just try to slice them all in half?
Yeah,
Sure.
that was
Whatever,
what I
I
was
got an
before.
afternoon free.
But now you just incorporate it. It's probably going to be like an
Yeah, now we're like, okay, how do we slice the 10 watermelons
Yeah,
on
yeah.
stage?
We'll get customers to come in.
We need-
Everyone bring a watermelon.
Just only members.
$10 discount for a watermelon, free float for a katana.
But it's true, like I feel like even if Float On were to collapse and I'd go back to eating ramen and doing nothing with my days, like I feel like I would take that with me. Like I would take this idea that like time is precious and I should be thoughtful with what I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna take that with me for the rest of my
It's
life.
like the most sacred resource there is.
It is.
Yeah.
Like at
And we
this point,
forget
like,
that so easily.
yeah, everything else is kind of slightly fictitious, like
Yeah.
money, society, houses, material goods, like
All of it.
oh, that's like slightly a human construct, and then there's like time, like that.
Yeah.
Well, time is also a construct. But
Well, but it's
true.
like it's something that we haven't figured out how to get around yet.
Well, I think when you attach it to a very passionate project, you then begin to really
new
understand
hobby.
that value, right? Because
travel.
you're so engaged with it, and every minute and hour you spend on it is very worthwhile, and the minutes and hours that are away from it, you feel like you've lost, and so you start really managing, where those minutes and hours are going, and really trying to put them in the places that help maximize your experience. So you don't want to lose any of those because those moments pass by. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about floating. We talked about in the beginning, when we gave ourselves titles, we were time gravity deconstructors. That's actually what we put on our business card, and it totally
the old
freaked
TGD.
it totally freaked people out. We're like, yeah, we're TDGing over here. And they were not down with it. But it expands your time, and it gives you more moments, and that's been really fun to play around with.
And there's something cool about. This is gonna get a little into the weeds here, but like
A little into the weird stuff.
The weirded
there's
woods.
something about when you start running a business, when you start producing things and putting time towards things like this, like being at a conference, this like Rise gathering that you guys put together, you get to see the real world effect of what you're putting your time into. Like you put time in, and you get to have this awesome event that comes out at the other end. And I feel like the school system does a terrible job training you about that.
Yeah.
Like you go through school and you spend all your time writing a paper that a person reads, writes a letter on, and then you throw it in the garbage. And you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's
what was the
I
real
spent
world
my-"
significance of
Yeah.
that, you know?
Like it really just made you feel like it really put a lot of it devalued your time. I felt like when I was going through school, having everything feel like it had no consequence. And as soon as I opened a business, realizing that everything I did had an actual real world consequence was like enlightening to me. It totally changed my perspective on what I was. I mean, I used to be a huge procrastinator in school. I don't think I ever finished an essay before
No,
the
I almost said that earlier too.
And like now in the real world, I don't do like it just stopped happening because all of a sudden like things are important and matter, and like when you do things, it's cool, and they end up like helping people in the world.
Well, that's it. It like
We wrote our
affects other
speech last
people's
night.
time.
And partially this morning.
That's
true,
what
but we
happens
wrote
when
it
you're in
down.
the zone, though. You just flow. You're in that flow state.
So I think it's good. It's a really nice perspective on realizing that like there is a link between putting your time into something and what you get out of it. And it's cool to keep that in mind, and it's cool to like see what comes out the other end too.
Totally cool.
It's like it's the greatest form of motivation.
It is a good reminder of this, like, I mean, almost how do you define what a hobby is, right? Like a hobby is something that you're not doing almost for that real world interaction as much or real world gain. And yeah, at least for me, I mean, like part of the reason the hobbies fell by the wayside is not just because I'm so busy with the business, but because I got totally addicted to seeing that change that you affect by doing real things in the real world,
right.
you know? Like, I mean, me playing guitar by myself in my room is awesome, and I love it, and I get a lot out of it internally. But then, yeah, things like working on float tank solutions and releasing things out to the world that are going to save, like, hundreds of people thousands of dollars. Like, somehow you look at the impact of that, and you're like, you know, maybe I should, like, not play guitar for an hour and work on
I'm
something
the world's
that's-
greatest guitar player. Like, I understand. I get it.
So yeah, this is.
Give up this float tank hobby.
But it's like this is creative expression. I mean, this is putting your energy and attention towards something, and it's attaching it to a vision, and it's putting it out there to the world in the same way that playing the guitar would be, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's just I find it even more enjoyable, you know, and being able to see how it moves people, just as you might like with a concert, right? It's looking around and people are happy, and I'm sure at FloatCon, like you just watch people get excited and the value that they get.
Well, we
It's-
keep
it's
talking about
amazing.
creating moments, and the idea of like spending your time to create moments not only for yourself but like the people around you that you remember, and those stories that are created, like earth poop. Like,
Yeah. Hashtag
People
Earth
listening
Poop.
will have no context on what that means, but yeah, earth poop is definitely the lesson to take away from this. Well, this is good.
It's all
This whole
about creating
conversation
stories.
started out very depressing, and we moved into a very positive space with all of this. So,
So there you go. That's
good.
what our hobbies are like. Thanks for the question, Greg.
You're welcome. Thank you.
thanks, Greg.
And if you have your own ambiguous questions you'd like to send our way, or about how we don't do the things we used to do anymore, you can. I guess just
we put
keep
them
it
in
to
a time
yourself or
capsule,
something.
set a date. We'll come by in about 50 years when it's supposed to be open, and we'll reach in and read them. And I guess at that point we'll probably be recording onto like holograms or something.
I think MySpace is coming back.
Yeah, you'll follow us on our MySpace page at that point, and you'll hear our answer.
That's good. Yours is much better. I was telling them to keep it to themselves. So yeah, that's a way better answer. All right, bury that time capsule, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.